Welcome to Cured.
I been kicking it with Coog. 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 Got a lot of shit to lose. I been kicking it with Coog.
So this is our music section. This is where all our vintage stuff is, but we'll start with the music section. Over here you'll find band tees from like the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. We'll have rap stuff in here too. You know, like Drake, Kanye West, Travis Scott, Kid Cudi, things like that. Over here we have our sports section. You'll find NASCAR stuff, wrestling stuff, and then obviously, you know, your local sports stuff, Celtics, Patriots, things like that. Over here we have pop culture. Pop culture consists of like movies, TV, cartoons, comics, video games, things like that. You know, you have like your Simpsons, or you have like Donkey Kong 64, or like you know, more Simpsons, Wolverine, Spider-Man, things like that. You know, along the entire store we have an assortment of sneakers, you know, Jordans, rarer things like Revenge Storm, Off-White, Yeezys, Idiots, you know, Supreme accessories and things like that. We have more vintage stuff. This is kind of like our 90s designer stuff like Tommy, Polo, Nautica, brands like that. Over here we have our outerwear and our pants, and then the rest of this is all of our like streetwear stuff. So you'll find like Supreme, Bathing Ape, Off-White, Palace, some more higher end things like Gucci, you know, some more obscure brands, 424, things like that. And you know, again, Yeezys, you know, probably the most popular shoe in the world right now when it comes to like the hype market and things like that. This is definitely like the most desirable brand of silhouettes that's out there right now. So I guess we're gonna sit down with Coog and, you know, chat it up about whatever the fuck it is I'm doing, I guess.
I've been kicking it with Coog. I've been kicking it with Coog. I've been kicking it with Coog. How'd I end up on the news? Ain't been following the rules.
Yo, and we're back. This is episode 2 of Kickin' It. I'm Coog. To the right of me I have Xury of Cured Collection.
Hello, everyone.
This is I work here. You're my boy. You're like a community figure now at this point.
Yes.
Most importantly, you're a father of 2.
That's the most important thing for sure.
I always gotta make sure that people know that. Yeah. How you doing, sweetie? We just closed the store. What's up?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. You know, full day of work. Just out here lounging. Province Place Mall. You know, can't complain.
For those who don't know, how did we get here? Like, and by here, like Providence Place Mall. Like, take us to the beginning of Cure, because a lot of people still don't really know like that you were doing pop-ups and all that. So let's take us to the beginning.
So are we starting like, you know, the beginning of Cure, or the beginning of me with clothes? Where are we going?
Shit, beginning of Cure, because I don't think I know that.
Yeah. Well, beginning of Cure, Cure didn't really start off as what it is now. It was me just collecting vintage clothes. Kind of due to the fact that I have the misfortune of being tall and wide. Mm-hmm. I would go out and find stuff for myself, or attempt to find things for myself, and you know, be unlucky a lot of times, but then I would find something fire in like a medium or a large or something like that. And you know, after leaving a bunch of really dope things, I kind of came to the conclusion like, you know, I got a friend or something, somebody who'd probably want this piece. So let me just take it, and you know, hopefully down the line I'll figure out who this belongs to really. You know what I mean? Like which one of my friends, or who I can sell this to or give it to, or whatever the case may be. So over time I started accumulating like kind of like cool pieces and whatnot. And you know, friends with Stay Silent and whatnot, and then the people in there. And a few years ago they were doing like a kind of like a pop-up with a bunch of local vendors and local brands and things like that. And at the time I had like a small like t-shirt line that I was doing, so they asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. And I thought it was a cool idea to do that, but then I also was thinking like, you know, injecting some of the stuff that I was collecting, like the vintage and whatnot, would be like a cool thing too. And I asked them if I could do that, and they were down with it. And you know, as soon as I brought things in, and you know, that were vintage pieces and stuff like that, people were kind of going crazy for it. So I knew that this was something that people were interested in. You know, and over time I started doing more pop-ups just by myself, and you know, started building like a customer base through that. Did more pop-ups. I did like one at Bad Taste before I opened up an arcade and things like that, and that's how I was able to kind of link up with the arcade and things. And you know, then the arcade opened up, and
that's been what, 3 years now?
Arcade opened up October of 2017, I would say. And prior to that, I was doing like more pop-ups at like the Providence Flea and stuff like that during the summertime. So yeah.
How important is the Providence fleet? I feel like any thrifter I talk to, anybody that's into vintage, always mentions Providence fleet. So how important is that to the community?
Providence fleet is definitely fire, man. It's one of those things that if you're, you know, an entrepreneur, you have product that you're trying to sell, whether it's something that you make or it's something that you collect or whatever the case may be, it can give you the opportunity to kind of like, you know, sell those things and also build like a customer base within like the community and whatnot, because there's consistent people that always show up to that, and then there's, you know, visitors or like out of town people that'll come by, or, you know, parents or students and things like that that come through, so you can kind of have like a good opportunity to sell things that you want to sell through there. And you know, that was where I realized that selling vintage and like just selling like things that I sell right now was a viable way for me to kind of like support myself, you know, and that's when I was able to decide, like, you know, let me open up a store, or whatever the case may be.
So recently Virgil had a comment saying that like streetwear is dead or on the way of dying, and vintage is where it's gonna be, and you were the first person I saw repost that. So like, what does that comment mean to you as someone who's been preaching like, yo, vintage is where it's at? That's a place that carries streetwear. It was like, I wish people would fuck with the vintage a bit more. How did that comment make you feel?
It was, it kind of like helped, in my opinion, it helped me validate it a little bit, because a lot of times when you tell people things about vintage and they're unfamiliar with that world, it's kind of like a little disheartening. You know, with vintage being the way that it is in terms of like its rarity, and you know, I guess people's attachment to certain things or whatnot, it falls right in the line of what kind of like makes streetwear kind of cool. Mm-hmm. But it's even more special because a lot of times you have streetwear brands that will, you know, take inspiration from or just straight up bite vintage pieces, you know. And then obviously with the vintage stuff, it could be stuff that you might have lived through, or, you know, a band that your parents might have listened to, yeah, or, you know, a TV show that you might have watched as a kid or something like that. And, you know, the feeling that you get from having something that, you know, you're attached to, you have some type of past experience with, it's hard to get from a lot of like the modern stuff, the streetwear and things like that. So it just helped kind of validate that for me. But the whole thing about streetwear being dead, it depends on what incarnation of streetwear you're talking about.
Sure.
Because the thing about streetwear is that since it's, you know, incarnation, before it was called streetwear, it's been ever changing and ever evolving. So what we consider streetwear now might be what's dead in the future, and then it'll live in a different, you know, incarnation, different existence than what we think of it right now. That's probably what it'd be.
What would be your favorite era of streetwear? Like, I know, like, for me, like, I love Bape, and that's off this fact that I'm such a Pharrell fan, and like that's like that early 2000s era was like everything that I saw was like, holy shit, this is incredible. For you, what's that?
I mean, definitely that early 2000s, and even prior to that, like late 90s type stuff, because the late 90s stuff was the things that laid the foundation for the stuff that became really popular.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Whether it be like Supreme or Bape or whatever, and like a lot of people don't know Bape, you know, started in like 93 or whatever the case may be. When they first started, they were printing on the same blanks that a lot of the vintage tees are printed on because of the time period.
Wait,
you know
really?
What I'm saying?
I didn't know that.
So like you'll find old Bape t-shirts or whatever the case may be with like Oneida tags or whatever the case may be, or like Fruit of the Loom tags and things like that. And it shows like the direct connection between streetwear and vintage in that regard. You know what I'm saying? So that's dope.
So you can pick one grail item that you can get for yourself. What is it?
Grail item that I can get for myself?
Yeah, not for the store.
Just out there in the world?
It doesn't have to be like a fucking crazy expensive piece. Just something like to you that just, this is wild to me.
There's this, so one of the joints that's like the genres of vintage that's becoming really, really popular right now is like older Marvel stuff, like older comic book stuff.
Yep.
And there's a type of t-shirt called the mega print, which is basically like an all over print of the shirt. Usually with the Marvel stuff, it'll be like a comic book cover on like the front of the shirt. There's this joint that it's Silver Surfer on the front,
yep, and
Galactus on the back.
Nice.
This joint is hard. And I remember maybe about, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, there's this dude named Feynman. He's actually one of the dudes that runs the Round 2 vintage store in LA. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing an auction that he had up on eBay for the joint for like $80, which at the time I was like, damn, you know, it's kind of expensive, but you know, I think I would have paid the $80 for it. Now, if you want to buy that shirt, the only one that you can find is about $800.
God damn.
Wish I would have bought it back then. Bro.
You should fucking.
It is what it is, man.
It was your size and everything?
Yeah.
Damn.
It'd be what it be, though. You know, these are the mistakes that you learn, you know?
I feel like that happens, though. If I knew what I knew back then, all my savings trips, I probably would have grabbed a bunch of random shit.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's a lot harder to find things nowadays just because there's so many people that are not, you know, that know that there's some value to a lot of this older stuff, so.
Do you feel, especially here, do you feel like with all these like thrift pages popping up and all these stores popping up, do you feel like it's oversaturating, or do you feel like it's helping the cause?
I think it's helping, man. I'm not mad at anybody that goes out there and thrifts and finds some fire or whatever the case may be. At the end of the day, it helps build that, you know, the community and that feeling. Like, there are a few things as good as the feeling of finding some wild shit out in, you know, whatever thrift or whatever the case may be, or just out in the wild in general. Like, you find a $400 Tupac t-shirt, or whatever, a Marvel t-shirt, just some old vintage polo or whatever the case may be. These are, you know, crazy pieces that are valuable, and, you know, there's nothing like, it's like, you know, finding buried treasure, essentially, you know. So
you mentioned like polo, and from what I understand, that's how you got into fashion, right? Like,
yeah.
So for people who don't know, like, tell the world like how much you've been into fashion, because I feel like whenever I talk to my friends about you, I'm like, yo, Sudi knows fucking everything about clothing. You're like, you know a lot. And
I mean, I know more than probably most people do, only because I'm really passionate about clothes, man. I've been into clothes since I was really young.
Where's it start?
My brother's like 10 years older than me, and when he was coming up, all of the stuff that we kind of like covet now, you know, the Jordans and things like that, those were things that were coming out, and things that he was buying when they were brand new things.
That's
when
crazy.
There wasn't like a legacy for these things.
Yeah.
When Jordan 1s were a new product, when they were like these Yeezys right here, or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? So I was able to kind of like watch the evolution of that culture and stuff like that through him. And then obviously once I became old enough, I was around his same size, you know, the guys out here buying a lot of clothes, a lot of sneakers, I started getting his hand-me-downs.
Yeah.
You know? And the thing about the stuff that he was giving me, it was like, this was all high-level stuff. So, you know, I started to realize like, oh, the difference between my bubble coat and that bubble coat, or, you know, this particular brand and that particular brand, or whatever the case may be. And then once I started getting old enough, I got my own money, I started working.
For sure.
You know, I'm out there shopping, and I'm buying like whatever little bit of shit that I can with the little bit of money that I'm making, bringing it home, and realizing like the stuff that I'm spending all my money on barely even compares to the shit that I was getting for free from my brother.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's funny.
And that's when I started to kind of learn about like, where can I go and find the ill stuff? You know, where was he shopping? You know, where can I find the stuff that's dope, that maybe looks like his stuff, but maybe it's a little bit cheaper, or whatever the case may be. You know, that's why I started doing research, going online and stuff like that. And, you know, there were like communities, small websites like Nike Park and Nike Talk first started to pop up, and you would see posts about, you know, colorways of shoes that never came out, or that were very rare, and, you know, these were incredible things.
Yeah.
Things that, you know, you'd never seen these things in real life. And that's where my kind of like fascination for the culture of the rare shoe and the rare item kind of was birthed, from starting to do research of just wanting to find the stuff for myself. You know what I mean? And, you know, it was just kind of like just a ridiculous snowball effect from there. You know, spending English class on Nike Talk or whatever the case may be, like, you know, it's just what it was, man. Driving out, bunking class, driving up to Boston to go shopping or whatever the case may be. And this was in stores like the precursors to what the boutiques are now.
Sure.
You know, obviously concepts and things like that were around back then, but then you had like stores like Manhattan's, Hip Zeppies, things like that, which had like, yeah, no, this is before your time.
Yeah.
But these were like some of the stores that had like exclusive product, Iceberg, LRG, things like that were starting to kind of like become things, you know, significant things within this culture, you know. And then those were the things that helped birth what the streetwear world is right now. You know what I'm saying? Like your Crooks and Castles, and then that evolved into, you know, just more popular brands, you know, obviously your Bapes and things like that. Those became a little bit more obtainable, because like prior to like 2004, 2005, you couldn't really get Bape in the United States. You know what I'm saying? You had to get it from Japan.
That's around the time I saw Bape for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, that's when a lot of these rappers and stuff like that started wearing it. You had like the Clips, Lil Wayne, things like that, guys like that. Pharrell, they were bringing it out here, and and wearing it because it was like Bape is almost like Japan's or Nigo's interpretation of like hip hop expression, but through like a Japanese lens. You know what I'm saying?
Glad you mentioned that. So talk about like how much hip hop plays a role into like how important vintage is right now. Because I've seen people working here. I've seen people come here and be like, "Yo, like I saw Travis Scott wearing that." What Travis Scott shirt we had here once? It was like a black and green band tee. Fuck.
Probably the White Zombie joint, maybe.
Yeah, and we had it at the arcade, and like I've seen people come in like, "Yo, I saw Travis Scott wear that. I saw you posted that. I need that." Like how much. Like just fashion and hip hop play a big role, but like let's talk about the fashion and like.
Well, celebrities in general, man. You know, and obviously, a lot of people don't really talk about it like that. But like hip hop is the most popular. It's pop now, basically.
You know 100%.
Like, you know, the rappers became the rock stars and stuff like that, so they have heavy influence in today's modern like popular culture. You know, so whenever any one of these guys wears something, it adds significance to whatever garment it is. Like to give you an example. For a long time, I had a Mr. and Mrs. Smith T-shirt. That movie, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It was like Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt or whatever.
Yep.
And you know, I had it in the store. Had it on some online platform for.
It was on Depop.
Yeah, for like I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months. You know, no traffic, no nothing. All of a sudden, overnight, might have been like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm getting messages, like multiple messages about this one shirt. Oh, what size is this? What are the measurements? Or can you do any better on the price? Blah 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 blah. And then I want to say maybe like. By 11 o'clock the next morning, the joint was it's sold without me having to kind of do any bargaining or anything with anyone. And I couldn't figure out what the hell, you know, why everyone was paying so much attention to this shirt. Like, and then I'm on Instagram and I noticed Travis Scott wearing a Mr. and Mrs. Smith t-shirt. And I'm like, well, there it is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So there's definitely, at the end of the day, I prefer when somebody has like a genuine attachment to something.
For sure.
But at the end, I can't be mad when a celebrity, a rapper, whatever the case may be, adds some validity to whatever item that they're wearing. Like, oh, if this shirt is good enough for this rapper or celebrity or whatever to wear it, then it must be good enough for me. A lot of times people just aren't familiar with, you know, the interest in vintage. You know, like why is this special? Why is this? You know, and there was an interview A$AP Rocky did recently with Karen Frost where he was speaking about vintage, and he was saying like, you know, people were kind of looking at him and asking that same question, like, why you know, wearing this used shirt or whatever. And I think the comment was something along the lines of like, you know, used, like this is art. You know what I'm saying? This is like museum worthy stuff. These people who are buying like luxury garments, there's you know 1,000 of those garments all over the whole, you know, the whole country in every department store that you walk into, or whatever the case may be. That's not really special. It's only really special because it's valued at a certain price. The vintage stuff, you never really know how many items, you know, how many more of these things are out there. You know what I'm saying?
This shirts here, I still haven't seen like ever like online anything.
I mean, there's stuff, you know, whether it's stuff that I have in the store, or stuff that I've kept for myself that like I've never seen this before. You know what I'm saying? Like this is the only one that I've seen of this particular shirt. So, you know, obviously with, you know, whatever it be a Dior or a Balenciaga, whatever the case may be, there's thousands of these examples of these items out there that, you know, people obviously covet them because of their price range or the materials that they're made out of or their status, you know, the trend that's happening right now. But, you know, these joints are valuable because not only are they, you know, in demand, but they're extremely rare. They've been, you know, there's only so many examples that are left over from however many years the item came out and stuff like that. So
let's talk about something that's kind of interesting to me, and I had to explain to like my mom a few times and like a few other people. Bootleg vintage items being more than the actual thing.
Yeah, so I mean, there's kind of, it's weird right now. There's like a little bit of a pushback from people who collect, like, I guess you could say like the trademark stuff. Yeah. So like there's vintage collectors that they'll only buy the stuff that was released by the album, by the record company or whatever the case may be. So it'll have like a, you know, Winterland copyright thing or like Giant or something like that.
Like actual tour merch or actual
exactly.
Merch, yep.
Whereas, you know, there's people who value the bootleg merch and like their rarity and the fact that, you know, these were items that were made by individuals who were basically looking to push these joints like outside of venues and parking lots and whatnot. That's why they call them like parking lot bootlegs, basically. Mm-hmm. So it's like some of these prints, they only exist in the iterations that particular person made for that particular show.
Yeah.
You know, which makes them clearly more rare. But at the same time, it's like, well, there's no official numbers on how many were produced or yada yada and etc. You know, over the last few years, the bootleg, just t-shirts in general, whether it be like a rap t-shirt, something sports related, movie related, or whatever the case may be.
Even high fashion, like Louis Vuitton or like Dior, or Chanel. We've had bootleg of those joints and they go crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, if you notice too, there's been like an appreciation of that stuff from brands like Gucci, working with Dapper Dan, Gucci Ghost, doing things that blatantly look like bootlegs. Whether it's like Gucci, writing their name with a Y at the end, which is clearly like something that would insinuate that it's kind of fake, or Diesel kind of doing like the misspelling of their name in some of the product that they did. Nike Supreme collaboration where they literally took bootleg Nike stuff from the 90s and reinterpreted it and put it out as a collaboration with Supreme.
I remember I called you, I was like, yo, so we have a Supreme version and this other one, and you told me one's bootleg, so like just explain to me this.
We actually had like a piece that was, you know, one of the inspiration pieces for the Supreme Nike collaboration, and it was like a bootleg piece from the 90s, you know what I mean? And this is stuff that if you wore it in the 90s, you would have got laughed at or whatever the case may be, because it was obviously bootleg. But because the bootleg stuff has this almost wonky aesthetic to it, it almost has like a charm to it, you know what I mean? So like that's one of the reasons why people appreciate it. It's different and rare in its own respect because it represents a certain type of culture that was prevalent back then. You know
Even now, like whenever I go to a show, like I went to Rolling Loud, I only bought the bootleg joints. Any show I go to, I buy the bootleg joints, and I always feel like the designs are better.
I mean, they have to compete with the real joints.
Agreed,
you know what I'm saying? So they're always going to come through with, you know, the overlapping images and the wild colors, the primary colors, and the, you know, the 3D letters and things like that. Those are the things that make these prints like, you know, visually appealing. You know, so you probably want to like wrap it right there. Are we hitting?
Because we have 30, right? We have 30.
I thought you said it was 20.
No, we have 30.
Oh.
They switched cards.
I'm sorry.
It's all good. Don't worry about it.
Right.
So we're sitting in Providence Place Mall, which is probably like, as far as touristy things go, this is like the best place to have a store.
Yeah, I mean the place gets a lot of traffic. There are a lot of people from out of state that when they come to Providence, they visit here. When the Patriots are playing against rival teams, a lot of the rival teams will come through here and shop.
I met the place last week.
So we have opportunities like that, athletes and whatnot. And your occasional celebrity, so it's definitely convenient. And then the fact that we're positioned where we are in the mall is also very helpful.
Take us through that process, because that's like, I remember the day you told me like, yo, I'm thinking we're doing the mall, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like, this is still a crazy accomplishment. So like, it's been what, 7 months now?
Yeah.
So like, take us through like just the process and how you're feeling now, and like, what are the plans for the year?
Well, I'll be real with you, man. It was just kind of like looking for something like to expand to, a lot of people familiar with the arcade location, which is the one we started at 2 years ago, and if you are familiar with that, parking is a pain. So
parking's trash there.
I noticed that we were getting more of a following and more of a customer base, but we weren't really seeing the increase that we were looking for. So I was thinking, like, how could we get more people to the arcade? So one of my initial ideas was to do almost like a kiosk or something, helping to promote the fact that we were at the arcade and just bring some of the traffic that the mall has through there. And then after talking to the arcade, talking to the mall, and then becoming familiar with what it was that we were doing at the arcade, we, talked and negotiated a little bit more about what I was looking to do, and finally came to the conclusion that the store would probably be more beneficial. And so far it's worked out. We've been able to capture a lot more people here just because, like I said, where we're located, people can kind of walk by and stumble upon us.
Yeah, even working there, I feel like there's been an increase in just like followers, the people we see, and people like haggle a little less because of the mall.
I don't really give a shit about that.
Not facts, it's something I noticed.
The thing that I really appreciate is when people come in and they actually like enjoy the fact that we're here. Like they enjoy the fact that there's something like this in Providence Place Mall, where like these are items. A lot of these things, streetwear, sneakers wise, that you might see on the internet, but you don't really see in real life because these are all items that are sold out instantly, essentially.
Yeah, not for nothing. I see mostly everything first here. That's kind of how I gauge if I like it. Like a lot of Yeezys I see in here for person. I'm like, oh, I do like these in person. Probably grab a pair eventually.
Yeah, you know, and with that, it gives people the opportunity to be able to purchase these things in actual, like, real life in person, and try them on, do different things like that. And, you know, for most people that live in Rhode Island or like in the general area, that's more of like an out-of-state thing. Like, you'll go to New York or you'll go to LA or something like that and find an experience like this. So for people, you know, here to have that, they're appreciative, and I really love that shit because, like, for me, growing up and being like into this stuff, I never really had anything that was like this, you know, that was interesting clothing wise, sneakers wise, that I could be like confidently go to and know that I'd be able to find something that I genuinely like.
Even me though, growing up, like our age difference, I don't think I had a store that was that dope to me in Rhode Island. I feel like my first experience with something crazy was like Bodega, which is in Boston, which is still close, but like I feel like when you open, when Batty's open for the first time, those are both moments for me where I was just like, holy shit, like this is in my city, this is crazy, and like now a lot of stores are opening. I feel like our community is getting a lot better. I feel like
it's all about timing too, man. Shout out to Cam. Shout out to Cam. But nah, it really is, man, because like this probably wouldn't work maybe like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, probably not.
I feel like, you know, the speed at which people are familiar with a lot of the brands and product that we have here is a little bit slower than like your New York and LA, which is understandable. So I think we're at the right time right now to do something like this, where, you know, you have people that are interested in looking for this stuff online or seeing or just exploring the world of, like, you know, the sneakers and the streetwear and the vintage, you know. And every customer that comes in and messes with the vintage stuff, I'm super appreciative of them, because, you know, it's not the first option for a lot of people. You know, somebody will come in and see like the Yeezys or the Sakai or the Travis Scott or the Off-White, and these are, you know, shiny things that people, when they see them, that's what they want to. So when people come in and they take the time to go through all the vintage pieces, I'm super appreciative of that.
Yeah, I love when people come here and buy like super obscure shit.
Yeah, those are my, you know, I usually work with those guys the most, because at the end of the day, I appreciate those who appreciate.
Of course.
So
before we head out, before we wrap up this interview, it's been 3 years since Cured's been a thing. I feel like, as far as like stores, 2 years at Arcade.
Yeah, a little over 2 years.
Creeping up on 3.
Yeah.
What is like? Where do you want to be a year from now? Like, you're in the mall right now. Like, what's like the big goal? Well, that you can tell us.
I mean, Cured was always a step in a bigger plan. For sure. You know what I'm saying? So I want to work more towards the bigger plan this year, you know, and people will start to see that in different things that we do. And
wait, what's the bigger plan?
Just you know, just kind of like exploring brand expansion, I guess you could say.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? So we're going to be working on that a little bit more and trying to see if we can expand our reach outside of, you know, our immediate circle, I guess you could say. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love being here and providing for Providence and stuff like that in Rhode Island, and we're definitely going to continue to do that, and we want to grow outside of that, so that, you know, we have something that we could appreciate, that Providence could be proud of, and be like, yo, that's that thing that grew out of this.
PVD's proud, for sure, and all the homies are proud.
I hope so, man.
It needs to be, man. I think, like I said, without these things, I feel like the other things don't get bigger. Everything happening in the city, I feel like
definitely.
You guys at the beginning, like I said, you and Bad Taste, you guys are the first things that I saw, and I've learned so much about vintage. Learned so much about streetwear, and I feel like a lot of the people who just come here and chill with us learn so much.
Not just that, but like I feel like when you learn about these things and find actual attachment to the things that we have here, or just in general, like this type of stuff, you learn a little bit more about yourself too. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, like I have like a real liking and fascination for this thing. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, just trying to just expand what it is that we do here and expand what people are into in Providence and in Rhode Island. And
Hell yeah.
hopefully provide more of that for people and shit.
Yo, thank you so much for sitting with me, Xury.
Yo, anytime, man.
We finally got this done. This has been like 3 years in the making.
Absolutely. So, you know, maybe another 3 years we'll do again. So,
Hell yeah, hopefully.
See where we are in the future, man.
Hell yeah, man. Yo, Kicking It episode 2 done. Thanks, guys.